Welcome to Anatomical Gangster. I am Sue Hitzmann. We are in 2025. This is my new year of awesome conversations with amazing people on this podcast. For those of you who don't know me, I am a body worker and a curious mind that has helped people for many decades live a more abundant life. I'm a New York Times bestselling author, and I've got thousands of instructors who teach my brand called the Melt Method and help people live a more abundant life. And for essentially all of my life, I have been curious about the living experience, the human experience. When I was 11, my great-grandmother went from being this spry, very smart, very loving woman to a lady in a convalescent home who forgot who I was and was just aging. She was dying. And I remember her putting her hands on my cheek and whispering in my ear, "Never get old." And I think that set me into maybe a little bit of PTSD, where I thought to myself, my gosh, am I going to get old? And when my aunt said yes, I said, well, how do you stop that from happening? And she said, you don't. And I thought, well, there must be a way. And what epitomized health and wellness when I was a kid were people like Jack LaLanne and Jane Fonda. So I kind of bit into this idea that if you ate right and you exercised, you were going to lead this healthy life. And I went on to study collegiately in anatomy and physiology and was very well versed in movement-based techniques and exercises. My very first legitimate job was as a group exercise instructor at 16. So it's been essentially all of my life with this notion of health and well-being wrapping itself around fitness and wellness. Well, at the peak of my fitness career, I was doing ESPN fitness shows, and I had an international best-selling boot camp video with Crunch, which was a health club that is still around today. And I was teaching these classes and I think living a great life. I had studied with Jim and Phil Wharton with active isolated stretching and neuromuscular therapy with Judy Delaney and Leon Chaitau's work. And in those years, things really started to shift by my mid-20s, where I had the opportunity to work with high-performance athletes, getting them out on the field faster, and really great with physical hands-on assessments, visual assessments, and protocols to help people who had injured themselves to get back out on the field faster. And I had a great knack at it. So I think when I was in my 20s, I had this belief like I knew how to live a healthy, active, pain-free life. And then one day I woke up and the bottom of my foot hurt me. And that completely veered me out of the fitness industry. It started out as this foot pain. I remember thinking I must have stepped on a piece of glass. And what started out as foot pain turned into this body-wide ache and fatigue that I just could not shake. And I started going to doctors to try to figure out what on earth was causing my pain to become chronic. And it went from a diagnosis of plantar fasciitis all the way to the other spectrum, where I had one doctor tell me I might have lupus, and I had a couple of other doctors tell me I was just depressed and I should take an antidepressant to manage how I was feeling. I just knew they were missing something. And I guess what was the luck of my story is that in 1998, Google really became a thing. And I typed the word plantar fasciitis into the search engine, and about 100 sites came up talking about fascia. And actually, a lot of them were about sticks wrapped in twine. Many of them were about airplane propellers. But the ones that were about the human body, I started investigating, how does fascia play a role in pain and pain management? And sure enough, I uncovered this emerging field of neuroscience and fascial researchers that were out there not only asking that question, but asking how fascia relates to life, how it relates to well-being, how it relates to the aging process and longevity. And I went down that rabbit hole to heal my own pain. And when I got myself out of pain by deepening my understanding of fascia, I kind of veered out of fitness and into the healing arts of hands-on therapeutic techniques like cranial sacral therapy, visceral manipulation, lymph drainage. And in each instance, they all talked about fascia, but nobody really ever pointed me into the direction that I was looking for. And one thing that I think was my question to a lot of people was when they put their hands on their clients, did they feel this kind of a low frequency vibration under the skin, kind of like a river moving in fluid. And most people would say no. I remember Leon Chaitez saying, well, there's a lot of rhythms and vibration in the body, heart rate, blood flow, but I'm not sure exactly what you're feeling, but keep asking your question and you'll probably find your answer. And one day, my friend Alec Hellner, when I was telling him about this sensation that I get and how I healed my pain through fascia, he said, you know, who you should talk to is Gil Hadley. He does a layer by layer dissection course. And I was like, layer by layer of what? And what I was to discover from him is how to look at fascia, not only as a tissue that connects everything, which is why they call fascia connective tissue, but it is a organ of sensory responsiveness. It actually helps us to sense and receive and perceive the world around us. It helps to support not only our muscles and our bones as a connective tissue, but in fact, on an extracellular level, on that microscopic level, it supports, protects, and stabilizes everything, your blood vessels, nerves, organs. It keeps every organ tucked back in your body. It keeps your cells communicating efficiently. And one thing that fascia has a significant relationship to is your lymphatic system. In fact, I could link fascia to everything that you could put the word stability in after. So emotional stability, chemical stability, neurological stability, psychological, neurological, hormonal. I could relate fascia to everything because it is the stability system of the body. It is a three-dimensional fluid-based architectural matrix that supports, protects, and stabilizes everything. And so as I went through this healing process, what I also uncovered by looking at fascia was a deeper connection that fascia had to these other systems, even our emotional stability. I can relate it to fascia. And that gave me, I think, information to look more deeply into anatomy in and of itself, and to look at this idea that there was a system in the body that I've really not learned much, if at anything, about up until I was in my mid-20s. And today at 54, I can tell you that while I'm well versed in fascia, fascia has also helped to inform me on consciousness studies, on complexity theory, on sacred geometry, and the fundamental basis of nature and consciousness itself. And in that, it has sort of sent me down a road for 20 years to understanding more about what's out there beyond the traditional confines of general science and the theory of general relativity, the basic definitions of consciousness. And it's made me look at the Buddhist writing and the way that nature itself fundamentally operates, and how my body is actually a reflection of nature itself, and vice versa in some extent. So I had always thought about doing a podcast because basically I am a question asker. I love learning from people. I'm in a constant state of learning. I learn something new every day. And also, I have this blessing because I've had the honor of working with researchers and scientists, and I've become a New York Times bestselling author. And somehow or other, I have gained the respect and the honor from other people to ask the questions and actually get answers from these brilliant people. So I thought, I'm going to start this podcast, and I wasn't really sure what to call it early on. And then jump ahead many years here. I'm in 2019 now. I've been married for 4 years, and my husband, whom I knew for 8 years and was married for 4, dies of an accidental overdose. And about 7 months later, COVID happens. And so my entire world got locked into a room like everybody else. I was in New York City. I moved my entire instructor training online. And I think in some ways, to save myself, it became ever clear that maybe doing a podcast would keep me connected to people. And it actually started out as what I called Tuesday Talks. And I would talk to somebody every Tuesday and hear what they were doing and what was going on in their world in 2020. And then 2021, 2022, I kept it going. I kept asking people questions. And 2024, I interviewed about 50 people. over the course of the year. And that was awesome. And now this year, 2025, I am diving in with some amazing educators. Actually, some of them, I can't even believe that they said yes, because of course, this is a small podcast. Who the heck is even listening to this except for the few hundred people who know me from the community? And even though we've got hundreds of thousands of people who have learned Melt, getting them to subscribe to a podcast is something else. But so why Anatomical Gangster? Why in the first place is this the name of a podcast? Why is this the choice I've made? Well, anatomical, right? If you will, it means to break shit down into small parts. That's what anatomy is, right? And the idea of anatomy is to cut stuff up into small pieces so that you can understand it. And then ideally you put it all back together to create one cohesive understanding of a topic. But for example, the body, you've got muscles, right? How many muscles? Maybe over 700 muscles as parts. And we can see muscles as parts and tendons as parts and bones as parts, but we call it a musculoskeletal system to try to bring things back together, right? So how does it work as an entire system to move us around, right? But to talk about the musculoskeletal system, you have to know a little bit about the nervous system, a little bit about the fascial system, the lymphatic system, the digestive system, because the way that our muscles and bones work is not in isolation. Everything is connected. So that's part of the anatomical of the name. Gangster, I know that's such a tough kind of a badass word in general. I immediately think of Tupac or Snoop Dogg, but anatomical gangsters are people who go against the grain of the status quo. And in so many ways, they do it unintentionally. They're not trying to get a rise out of the traditional schools of thought, of science, of technology. But, gangsters just emerge not to harm the culture, but rather these humans are out to awaken to a more real reality, a more loving reality, a more connected reality, to make the small stuff and the big stuff finally fit. Because we know, even in the fundamentals of something like physics, E equals mc squared and quantum mechanics, they don't match, they don't connect. And I mean, the big stuff is made out of the small stuff. So how can you not connect them? And how can physicists be so okay with, like, you guys stay in your camp and you guys stay over there and we can all get along, but don't cross over the two? But there are pioneers who are looking at quantum mechanics and the big stuff, gravity, and trying to put it together, from the theory of vacuum to, again, sacred geometry and the Fibonacci scale and all sorts of things to try to explain even the fundamental basis of consciousness. But my point with these kind of anatomical gangster is that they're really trying to push the traditional confines of whatever their platform is, kind of to shift fear and angry minds to becoming more adaptable, seeking more harmony, more connection, a sense of abundance, and a sense of explanation that really can help us to understand how humans became in the first place. Why are we here? And some people say it was just a fluke, but I think I know the meaning of life. I'd be curious what you think the meaning of life is. If you've listened this far, maybe leave a message for me of what you think life is about. But I think the meaning of life is love. To learn what love really means, not just being in love or to fall in love, which always sounds like some sort of a car crash or something to me, or like I slipped and smashed my face and broke teeth, but to love in a way that is meaningful, that gives us a sense of purpose, a sense of well-being, because there's so many people who make a choice to suffer when they don't really realize that that is a choice, that suffering is something that we can overcome and change our mind about the experience that we're having, and completely change everything. So people that think like that, I think they're gangster. They're pushing the boundaries of traditional everything, science, technology, and the fundamental basis of life itself. And they're asking the questions that I think about. And I don't have all the answers, and I don't think I ever will, but I love being curious and constantly asking the questions that get me closer to maybe finally answering the question of how in the hell did I get in here? And what I mean is like in here, in my skin. How did I become? So in 2025, I've got great people that somehow have said yes to my ask to come and talk to me from all walks of life, not just from the anatomy world, but people who talk about the betterment of our water supply and garbage and what happens when we throw our boxes away. Are they really just going into a landfill that nobody wants us to know about? To physics, science, technology, and things that are helping people live better in their bodies. So if you stay with me, I would just ask that you subscribe to this podcast and become a part of this community by asking questions. And if you can think of any great people that I should talk to, I am happy to get in front of as many people as possible this year. And by the way, I'm always looking for female educators because it seems to me I can find all sorts of male educators who are willing to come on. But when I reach out to the females, they don't even return my message, and I can't quite figure out why. So if you think of somebody that I should interview, please leave that comment below. And I hope that you enjoy this 2025 list of awesome conversations that I'm going to have with a whole bunch of brilliant people. Jaap van der Wal, Garnet Dupuy. I've talked to Mark Hewitt, Jay Hare from Alcaviva. I've got so many people lined up for you this year that I've already had conversations for. I hope that you love this collection of conversations this year. And in the meantime, thanks again for listening to this podcast, for being part of it. And again, leave your comments, hopefully constructive criticism ones and not mean ones from all of the oddities out there. But I hope that we can learn together and grow together this year to begin deepening our appreciation of the human experience and to love one another more. I hope you enjoy Anatomical Gangster. Thanks for being part of it. Please subscribe below. See you soon.